Hey guys, I was a little sick while recording this video, but the grind never stops. Let's do this. Okay, so I like Bleach. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say I'm a Bleach fan. And I just want to start this video off by clearing the air. Bleach is better than Boruto.
You need to leave!
I had to say that. I had to break my silence because I already know Boruto fans are going to be in this video's comment section because they got nothing better to do. They can't comment on their own manga, so they gotta comment on others. Now, I actually have a separate video planned on how Boruto fans hate everything, but that's not the point of this video. Now, releasing this video, I know I'm going to be called a heteronormative, misogynistic, male gaze, smart incel because women on Twitter only have 6 insults. So I'm going to clear the air again. If you think I am a misogynist, I want you to look at my content. I have criticized Trump, Wakai, Lord Babylon, and numerous men along have made many videos criticizing the alt-right ideology. It is pretty obvious that I am not a misogynist.
I ain't no misogynist. I ain't never gave out a massage in my entire life.
If you think I am a misogynist, you don't know what the definition of that word means, and you shouldn't be throwing it around because you're stupid. Anyway, I just had to clear up those topics because I'm going to be putting someone's dumbass Twitter post where I'm somehow seen as evil or whatever. Also, if you think I'm being too harsh on the people in this video, I assure you, I am always like this, no matter who it is. Let's clear the air some more because why not? Bleach is a shonen manga, which means that it is made by men, for men, or at least highly targeted for men. Not every shonen manga is made by a man, that was my bad. Similarly to Barbie. If a man doesn't like Barbie, he's not sexist, but you wouldn't take his opinion of the Barbie movie as highly as you would take a woman's opinion of the Barbie movie, because Barbie is not geared towards 30-year-old men. It's geared towards women. P.S. You're still allowed to criticize things even if you aren't the target audience, but I'm just saying, if you see an adult say a kid's show is bad, sometimes you don't take it as much as the kid saying the kid's show is bad. You know a kid's show is bad when the kid won't even watch it. That's a similar way with shonen manga. You would not take a woman's criticism of a shonen manga as seriously as a man's criticism. Because even if the criticism is good, she's just not the target audience. This isn't a jab at her or a jab at her character, or even saying that she's a bad person for enjoying or criticizing the media. But I am saying how those critiques would not be taken as seriously. So this immediately criticism of how the male characters or the female characters of X story are sidelined only works in a series like Aspen Hotel, a series that Vivzy Pop claimed to be female-led, only for it to not be as female-led as people were expecting it to be. Then that is the only time where this type of criticism is valid. However, Tite Kubo did not write Bleach intending for it to have a wide female audience, because most women at the time were not interested in those types of stories. Now, I might be wondering, what am I talking about, and what the fuck am I even rambling about? Well, our smart people at Feminists Twitter HQ, which is somehow still around, have decided to say how Bleach is misogynistic. Yes, Bleach, the series with numerous strong women characters, and the series that has actually made a misogynistic character get his ass beat continuously, is actually deeply misogynistic. So, let's just see what they're talking about. It all started, at least from when I can tell, when Nova tweeted, "Bleach is a great manga, but it does have misogynistic undertones. Not even the 2 main female characters, Rukia and Orihime, are free from it, let alone the side characters. You can appreciate a story while still pointing out valid criticisms. I thought the term female was derogatory while using it to describe 2 characters, first off. But 2 more things. If you got discouraged by the 2.6 thousand likes because what do people care about likes on Twitter, don't worry, most likes on Twitter are botted no matter what the opinion is. Just ignore them. Second off, saying a story has misogynistic undertones isn't a valid criticism. It's just not. You criticize a story through character consistency, theme, originality, plot lines, conflict, setting, and of course treatment. How well all of those ideals that I mentioned form together. Those are valid criticisms. If your criticism is, when Orihime got sidelined, which I will get to later, that is not a valid criticism. This reminds me of all those times when people were saying how Naruto is actually not a good story because Rock Lee should have been the main character, because Naruto was born gifted and born talented. It's the same sort of mindset here, where if your belief is that a character got sidelined, that is a disappointing factor of it. Everybody gets disappointed when their favorite character gets sidelined. I'm a total drama fan. I would know about my favorite character not getting attention. However, and this is a big however, that is not a valid criticism, because realistically, a character is going to be sidelined. Unless if that character was built up to be the most important thing ever, which they usually aren't, then that character was going to be sidelined. But let's look at the examples of the women she mentioned: Orihime, Unohana, Nell, Hisani, and Masaki. Now this is an interesting take because this doesn't make any sense, but we'll see where she goes with this. One man responds with, I disagree with all of these. Orihime is the focal point of most of the Iwanka arc. Unohana wasn't sidelined for Kenny. He actually talks about how much he respects her more than anyone else. Nell is also important in the Iwanka arc. But what would a Moid know? Orihime got adequate screen time, but she was still a plot device forced by Aizen. And then to make Ichigo stronger against Ukiyoa, Unohana and Yachiru were both sacrificed to make Kenny stronger. Him praising her does not change that. Nell was a stepping stone to glorify Minatora, and says how all characters are plot devices because all characters help the plot move forward. Now, I do not agree with this take, mainly because a character being a plot device has negative connotation, but that's just my personal opinion. We'll carry on. Ukiyoa was also sacrificed to make Ichigo stronger against Aizen. Does that mean Kubo has a bias against him? Minatora wasn't glorified at all. He was shown in a negative light. Ukiyoa is a horrible example because he was one of the most well-written plots in Bleach. He was also completely developed as a character with nothing else for him to offer. His death is considered one of the best moments in Bleach compared to the unfulfilling development the women got. If your argument is that Yachiru and Orihime will sacrifice to make Kenpachi stronger, which I haven't read the 1000 Year Blood War manga in a few years, and I haven't seen the anime yet because I want to watch it with a friend. But last time I checked, Yachiru is Kenpachi's Zanpakuto. She is his blade. Without Yachiru, this man could not fight in the first place. And also, Kenpachi and Unohana is meant to be symbolic of a mother passing the torch on to her son. It's symbolic for passing the torch. I know, symbolism goes beyond the heteronormative, whatever other buzzwords you guys can throw, but symbolism goes beyond that. Hey, so editor digital dictator here, it's actually kind of funny she mentions Ukiyoa being developed and how he served no more to the plot, because the same can be said to Unohana. Both of them served their purpose in the story, and thus forth both of them can die now, or at least not be relevant to the story anymore. And making the argument that Orihime was used as a plot device for Aizen is an absurd statement, because Orihime had a special power that Aizen wanted. You're acting like he kidnapped her for literally no reason whatsoever, and now Ichigo has to save Orihime while he picks up a harem of women. And mentioning how Nell is a stepping stone to glorify Minatora, that's not true. Minatora was never glorified in the story. Again, these are words: glorify, fetishize, diddy poo poo, vilify, are words you just want to put in a box and put up on a top shelf, like what you do with a toddler's toys when they're acting up. You take their toys and you just put it on the top shelf so that they can't reach it. I find it even funnier because you can tell by the fact that she knew she was wrong about Nell being a stepping stone, because she would immediately drop that argument in the next tweet. But let's keep going. What you described Ukiyoa is literally the same thing for Unohana. I disagree. I don't think sacrificing one of the Gotei's most powerful warriors and healers at the time, when they needed her the most just to unlock Kenpachi's true strength, was a worthwhile trade-off.
I'm stopping right there. Bitch, be for real.
And that is your opinion. But you do look a little hypocritical supporting the writing decisions for Ukiyoa, but disliking the same decision for Unohana. This is funny because you can't just reply with, I disagree. Now, this could be a valid criticism if you were talking about the strategy, long game, or logistics of the move, but the argument was about, is this misogynistic or not, which it isn't. Again, you're just incorrect, which, by the way, Grimmy would have crushed the entire Soul Society if she didn't sacrifice herself. Also, this development isn't just for Kenny, this also helps develop Unohana's assistant, Asane, to take her spot. Una got to give 2 different titles to 2 different people, something very few characters in most media get to do in general. So how is it misogynistic when both a man and a woman are put up and have a chance to improve and grow? Asane is just not a focal character because a big chunk of the lieutenants aren't that focal of a character. My goodness, this is fun. I think I'm gonna save the Orihime arguments for last because that's gonna be the most fun. It's like the fandom is contrary for no reason. A character who dies fulfilling her goal and life purpose they want her to live, and a character who survived and enriched the narrative they want him to die. This is in relation to the Kenpachi and Unohana post. In fact, I think it's very funny because the same woman, Nova, who talks about the misogyny in Bleach, also reposted a piece of artwork about Megumi's abs. Now, I haven't seen JJK. Megumi is apparently 15. One of the last few relevant posts we'll get to is them saying this. Anyways, I think we'll all have to come to agree to disagree because I haven't come across any good enough arguments that'll make me refute my points and make me correct myself. Except you did come across a good argument, the Nell argument, which you have conveniently ignored. Also, this is Twitter. Nobody was expecting you to change your mind on anything because it's Twitter. Nobody takes Twitter seriously in the first place. I don't know why we need a dissertation about how you're not going to change your opinion. I don't know why we need that.
We do not care.
But here's the funny part. I need to fake some tears for this one. Would also like to add that Bleach Twitter itself is an incredibly toxic and unforgiving place. To try and have any debates about the manga or say anything that isn't outright Kubo glaze. That's how you drive people away from the fandom, especially given how small it currently is. Translation. I want to spread blatant lies about a story, and when I get caught out, I want to play the victim. Then she says the Bleach fandom is small. The Bleach fandom is many things. It's not small. I'd go as far as to say the Bleach fandom is quite massive. Maybe it's just because you're on Twitter and you're always on Twitter, so your tiny brain tends to think that the world around is basically just how Twitter operates. But the Bleach fandom is incredibly big because why else would they choose to animate the 1,000-year Blood War arc? If there wasn't a demand for it, then they would post this. Someone in my mentions tried to say Bleach can't be misogynistic because Ichigo is a stay-at-home dad, which he's not. No, Hime works part-time. I need a gun at this point. I need at least 3 men to satiate my rage. Yeah, I don't think you can start threatening violence against people over an anime take that's not that good. I don't know why you expect people to take you seriously after you tweet this, but I think we all know what this person is. Another bitter hand hater with shitty takes and weaponizing feminist talking points without knowing what she's saying herself. I think that's all. That's one clown down. Where's the next take? Next take from Kai, who says Bleach doesn't have misogynistic undertones. Unohana, Yoruichi, Rukia, and Soifan, and tons of other powerful and respected women in divorce. Nina Toa is the most sexist and misogynistic character in the series and gets voted by a woman. This is all true. Again, people are just forgetting about the fact that Soifan beat one of the Espada. A woman who blocked me. Yes, somebody who blocked me. Just add them to the tier list. This fight is a great example of Bleach being misogynistic. Even though Nell is more powerful than Nina Toa, even though she's the one who has a history with him, she's not allowed to defeat him. The victory is taken away from her at the last second. 2 things I wonder wrong with this take. 1, saying how a story is misogynistic because the character you wanted to kill another character did not do that is dumb. That's just plain and simple. Even if you want to make the argument about how Nell is stronger than Nina Toa, it's just another case of somebody who's stronger than another person losing to a character who is willing to cheat, who is willing to deceive. In fact, this ties into my second point. The story is making fun of Nina Toa. The fact that he had to attack Nell while she was down makes him seem truly pathetic and desperate to beat her, even after she chose to spare him. This is to show how truly depraved and pathetic someone as misogynistic as Nina Toa is. This reminds me of South Park, where Eric Cartman tries to beat Wendy by telling her parents about the fight. Even if you make the argument about how Wendy actually won that fight and Nell didn't, Nell did win that fight. She just chose to spare his life. She chose to spare it, and Nina Tora striked her while she was down. That is what the story is trying to tell you, and it's trying to show you just how amoral and how despicable Nina Tora is. And I can't believe I have to explain this. But the story is doing what they did with Nina Tora, what they did to Eric Cartman in that episode. People who are being incredibly bigoted and incredibly misogynistic, getting their ass beat by someone, and having to find some way to win. And before you make the argument about Nell needing to be saved by Kenpachi, how often are Bleach characters saved in general? Ichigo was saved by Kenpachi. Uryu and Renji were saved by Mayuri. In fact, in the Fullbring arc, Ichigo was saved by Renji, Byakuya, Toshiro, and Rukia, a female character, because they are a team. This is what a team is. They work together and try and beat their opponents together. As you can see, it's not misogynistic, it's just called having friends. Something you might be unfamiliar with because you're an Ichiruki account. So let's recap. You think the story that is dunking on a misogynistic asshole by having him get beaten by a woman and him having to strike her while she is down is actually misogynistic. So how much media literacy you truly have. This argument falls flat on its face. Then somebody would post this clip of Senjumaru, a female character in Bleach, killing 6 of the strongest characters in the Bleach verse. None of them died.
Read, nigga, read!
They died and got revived by someone who could see and alter the future. Stop coping. Then, none of them actually die and she gets off screen in the manga. Thanks for proving my point. This is one of the strongest female characters in Bleach, and even she gets jack shit in the manga and is defeated by a 17-year-old in the anime. You could take her out of fights and it literally would not change. Talking about Uryu's age, as if Ichigo didn't take down numerous captains at 15, is utterly absurd. It's like you just choose what parts of the manga you want to read, and then ignore the other parts of said manga. Then her response is, Bleach fans be like, Kubo can't be misogynist, here's another female character, or farming for 5 minutes, and getting taken out right after. Oh, and their opponents are still alive and kicking, by the way, because everyone knows only men can put an end to actually strong opponents. I've already debunked this argument. If you believe that the women in Bleach are not allowed to take down the stronger opponents, then you clearly have not been seeing the numerous fights Rukia has in Bleach. And it doesn't take a genius to know that there are numerous women characters who also beat strong guys in Bleach, but you wouldn't know that. Do you want to know the real reason why many characters of Squad Zero just weren't fleshed out? Because Tite Kubo could not flesh them out. I fucking despise the shitty ass Ichiruki account. Kubo couldn't develop Senjumaru or the rest of the Squad Zero properly because they didn't even show her Bankai in the manga because his health was completely fucked. Torn shoulder tendon, partially fractured for years of overdrawing, hospitalization, the whole thing that rushed 1,000-year blood war and forced an early end. But he had the opportunity to show it to his fans in the anime, and they actually did her Bankai justice, and you still disrespect him like that by calling him a misogynist. I hate this account, you can't make this up. Everyone, male and female, got bodied by U-Hawk and his royal guard because they were straight up powerful. Squad Zero, Ichigo's crew, whoever loses were universal, and that rushed final arc. But somehow Kubo is misogynist specifically because a female character he couldn't properly develop due to his health issues lost. Even after the anime expanded those fights and gave fans more of what they couldn't draw in time, and he still gets called a woman hater. I can't with these people, I really can't. It's okay, King Arthur. Pat, pat. Her response to this, he was fully healthy enough to give the male characters full-fledged multiple character arcs. I made fun of her because I'm only on Twitter to make fun of people, and I got blocked, but I said this. I know you're physically sick, but please add what I want you to add. And of course I got blocked, which just further proves my point that they're childish and that they're a snowflake, and I don't need to associate them with them anymore. Anyway, this person argues a losing stance for Al because of course she does. I just scrolled down her Twitter. I'm not reading every argument she makes because most of it is crying about random buzzwords she probably found in a YouTube essay. But she does say an interesting point here. Why do you think as a man you have any right to decide what is or isn't misogynistic? This is actually an argument a lot of Christians make when an atheist questions their belief. The belief that an atheist can't understand the Bible or understand Christianity because they're not Christian is missing the point. Words have meanings. For example, as of what's going on, the Bible is a book. Anyone with media literacy skills can understand a book and understand the Bible. Hence, even an atheist can debate it and talk about it. Misogyny has a definition to it. You can't throw the word around. Thinking a man can't explain what misogyny is because they are a man shows that you don't know what misogyny is yourself, which is incredibly contradictory when you claim to be a misandrist. Now, of course, I know someone will take this out of context and say I am mansplaining because apparently you can't correct people when they're wrong about things without being seen as a pretentious douchebag. But whatever. I don't care. I'm on the internet to have fun, not to take anything seriously. Alright, let's carry on. I am killing these. Holy shit. Alright, another person decided to make a list of all the times women were being mistreated. Unohana sacrificed to power up Kenpachi. Again, we already debunked this point. Yoruichi had her agency removed so she could be controlled by Kisuke. I'll get to this point later because you can make an argument for it, but you also can't make an argument for it. Rukia absent from the final battle despite being the deuteragonist of the series, and Nimue sacrificing herself for Mayuri. Rukia could not get into a solo fight with Yuha, not because of misogyny. There was a reason why they didn't say, hey, Byakuya, go fight Yuha. Not because of misogyny, because Yuha was just way too powerful. Ichigo, Aizen, and the handful of people they sent up there, which I don't remember the exact group, were the only group that could truly put a dent in Yuha. And Nimue made her own decisions instead of following orders to stand aside, which, again, you talk about how the women characters in Bleach weren't developed. That's development right there. That is development. The women characters aren't the only characters who sacrifice something in Bleach. Just letting you know that. Ukitake sacrificed himself, then Rukia became captain. Gin sacrificed his own happiness and life so Mangekyou can live free. Ishin sacrifices his status, powers, and captain life to save Masaki from holification. Literally gives up everything for her. And Kane died for Rukia's growth. It's funny because the woman who made this post, Cynical Potato, also made a fan fiction. So let's read this piece of art together, shall we? Imagine for a second, the Hellbound captains betray SS and team up with the other Hellbound foes like Slazzle. They win with help from the past in the form of Yuha threatening to destroy everyone at their happiness. Orihime, after antagonizing the decision, uses her power to eject that past events and undo the future. Her final words to herself are, "It'll be okay, Kurosaki-kun, and I will fall in love again and make sure the future will be saved." Bleach takes a backwards time skip. Orihime, burdened with knowledge of future events, warns everyone the battle against Yuha is won. Yay, super happy. Except now, hit with the knowledge of future events, everyone that was ready to sacrifice happiness in the first go-round doesn't do it this time. Both Ichigo and Rukia take a chance and decide that their happiness with each other. Orihime, after some very hurt emotions, sees that she wasn't happy either in the future and decides to give Ishida the time of day. Chad doesn't box. Ishida doesn't doctor. Karen trains her Shinigami powers and dates Hitsugaya, and Renji gets a new hairline. Super mega happy ending. Yo, this person genuinely thinks Ichigo and Rukia romantically like each other. I'm crying. Yes, men do sacrifice themselves for women in Bleach. Women sacrifice themselves for men in Bleach. You wanna know what that is? Equality. Again, Bleach is a very tragic story in numerous different ways. Man or woman, I just think Tite Kubo likes having absurdly strong characters fight each other. Let's circle back to Yoruichi because there might be a genuine argument they can make here, but there is local genuinely an argument I can make. The argument I am making is that Urahara is not a good person, and the story does not treat him like he is one. In fact, the story criticizes both Urahara and Yoruichi in this scene. This is in reference to the fight she had with Askin. Askin is an incredibly powerful foe. For example, he originally beat Grimmjow, or at least he thought he beat Grimmjow, only for Yoruichi to show up and fight Askin, which would technically fall under Yoruichi saving Chad, Orihime, and Grimmjow, which is an example of a woman saving a female character and two male characters. In order to be saved, Urahara appeals and gives her a medicine to save her. This will transform her into a provocative outfit. Don't know how I stuttered twice in that clip, but it's whatever. It's 2:30 in the morning and I'm still editing this video. So please like and subscribe so I can have all my editing go to good use. Please. And follow my Twitter because I always have good takes on Twitter. And you could argue it sexualizes her. Now you could criticize this and you don't have to like how it's done. However, I can make this argument. If you think God of Thunder mini arc exists because Kubo was hard and not because it's illustrating a very clear point in the dynamic between the two featured characters, I think there's an issue at hand here. Yoruichi is not mistreated by the powers that be. She's mistreated by a character that is otherwise very well liked and beloved by the fandom. That brushes this aside as mischaracterization. Stop divorcing the work you apparently like from our contextual and thematic intent. You could further argue this. This makes someone extremely uncomfortable. Kubo is illustrating what Urahara thinks of Yoruichi as a person, because Urahara is somebody who is not respectful towards women, or even respectful towards people in general. It's not supposed to be subtle. It's very obvious. I don't know how you missed this. Urahara clearly views Yoruichi as a tool, and he's not glorified in this part of the story. Another post from King Arthur, because I guess I'm just glazing this nigga now. The problem is you whip this morally gray moments out of context and call it misogynistic, when it's completely consistent with Urahara's character. He's always been a shady, world-beating experimenter who does questionable things to allies for the greater good. The drug injection and agency loss were grim plot necessities for Survive in order for her to survive Asuka's poison, not Kubo treating Yoruichi badly or hating women. It's just story circumstances forcing a high-stakes transformation. You can dislike the design or the ethics of it, that's fair, but slapping misogyny on it ignores the in-character logic and actual definition of the word. It's not misogynistic writing, it's just morally complex writing. Again, this is like The Boys criticizing Homelander, or South Park criticizing Eric Cartman. Hell, even the Fantastic Four criticized Johnny, and Johnny is typically seen as a hero. If you can't look at a story and tell when the author is clearly making a character look good or bad, then maybe you just shouldn't be reading stories now, should you? However, the story also criticizes Yoruichi. She needs to change forms in order to beat this man, and her refusal to do so, while understandable, so that she's putting her needs above the needs of the group at hand here. And heroes have to make difficult choices. You don't have to like how it's written. In fact, there's many stories out there that I don't like how they're written, even if I get the point. Like, for example, One More Day from the Spider-Man comics, where Spider-Man has to sacrifice his marriage to save Aunt May. You could argue how you don't like how it's written. You could argue how it's poorly done. You could argue this or that, this or that. Doesn't change the fact that the intent of it is still the intent. How a story is done does not change the intent of the story. Again, people talk about wanting more victims of SA in fiction. We want more SA victims in fiction. And then when you get a character being depicted as a victim, you suddenly get uncomfortable. Furthermore, the person who originally made this complaint about Yoruichi's transformation being against her will draws NSFW. What? I will go even further and say how everyone has liked Yoruichi's transformation. Not just men, but there are numerous women who cosplay as Yoruichi from this scene. So I don't know what else to say. I think I've already said my piece. Okay, time to get to the last one. Orihime was actually a lot easier to defend than a lot of the other characters. So let's get the elephant out of the room. Her 1,000-year blood war outfit. People claim that the sexualization... Oh, one of the characters who designed it, Urahara, a character who I already talked about not being a great person. Oh, this is a character being an a-hole to another character? Who would have thunk? Alright, so let's talk about her world in Wake Mundo. In fact, let's go back to our old friend, Nova. I'm not even going to argue about anything else. If anyone can explain to me what purpose Orihime served here, after gassing her powers up so much, and making her resolve to destroy the Hongekyu, what did she do besides making Aizen look like a mastermind who's 2 steps ahead of everyone? Okay, so it seems like a lot of people tend to forget about the fact that Aizen wasn't just taking advantage of Orihime, he was taking advantage of everybody around him. Second off, yes, Orihime has the powers to destroy the Hongekyu, but she is a pacifist, not a fighter. So I don't know what this argument is. And somebody comments this: nothing. She failed, she wasn't enough. Real shit that I feel. Yes, she was used to pop up Aizen like every other character. It's more about what she did afterwards to bring herself in Open 1,000-Year Blood War to be a crucial part in the final battle, and not just a plot device. That's all I'm going to say. It seems like the main argument is how Orihime doesn't get development in the Wake Mundo arc. Or at least Nova's main argument is that Orihime doesn't get development in the Wake Mundo arc, which is frankly dumb. Replies proving my exact point, used by Aizen, triggered Ichigo's transformation, rendered pivotal for Ukiyo's development. Are we serious? Are we seriously not seeing the pattern? Her significance is repeatedly constructed through male character arcs rather than sustained through her own agency. The argument that she has is that Orihime benefits the main characters and only exists for their development, which makes sense if it wasn't a two-way streak. Orihime is also developed through Ichigo, Aizen, and Ukiura. It's called reading. It's called reading. Using your eyes and reading. Something you clearly don't know how to do. And then somebody else argues, so her development still revolved around a man, so Gin's development is irrelevant because it's about Rangiku. I don't know what they're talking about here. This is like a pretty terrible take in my opinion. The Orihime at the time still isn't strong enough even though she's worked really hard making rapid progress in just a few months since awakening her abilities, to the point of reviving the dead. But at this time she can't confidently say the line, even the most hopeless wounds can be healed. For the Orihime of this era, a perfect score of 100 is something she only reaches 80 on. She still weighs off from being a special forces character, and her understanding of her own ability isn't deep enough. Meanwhile, she gets a lot stronger in Thousand Year Blood War. In fact, you can argue a lot of Orihime's arc and development is about how she is a pacifist, but still wants to be strong enough to protect her friends. I like to compare Orihime's development to Ichigo's development. Neither of them have these big character changes or these massive moments that define their entire character, but they do change and they do grow throughout the story, but they're not the most noticeable aspect of their characters because their goal mostly remains the same. I want to protect my friends. Both Ichigo and Orihime want to protect their friends, even if Ichigo's a fighter and Orihime is a pacifist. Both Orihime and Ichigo develop the world around them, and because of them developing the universe around them, they get developed in return. There's actually a really good Twitter thread on this that I'll put in the description of this video, and frankly, puts it in better words than I can, but if I had to summarize it, it's saying how Orihime's world in Reiko Mundo arc is not about glorifying the men around her, it's about her refusing to change herself for the men around her. But yes, she was developed in Reiko Mundo. And then people get mad because Orihime apparently works at a bakery, which is already a false translation anyway. And how is this like a complaint? She got a job at a bakery. Okay, how is that misogynistic? Women can't work at bakeries without misogyny, I guess. These people really just think misogyny controls their everyday life. They can't even enjoy basic things without it. This is misogynistic, actually. You must be like the most unfun person at parties. I don't go to parties. I'm actually also pretty unfun at parties, if you couldn't tell through my demeanor, but that's not important. Wait, here's a bunch of random takes I couldn't put into their own section. This shit makes no sense. Bleach fan not being able to read fork found in kitchen. Oh wait, I so have a bankai I never used that so counts as my enemy set to a T. What about this build or hints we don't do that here? Did this person just say Nano has a bankai when she doesn't? I have no personality and I must LARP as a Bleach fan, I guess. There's another post, this time from a Boruto fan. If this design was in Boruto, the entire community would be on her head. I don't see what the problem is here. First off, this is a minor character who isn't even that relevant to the overall plot. I actually forget who they are. And while the design does look ass, this is also a Boruto and a Gurren Lagann fan. So what is he complaining about? The call is coming from inside the house, dude. Furthermore, all the Soul Reapers in Bleach look younger than they actually are, because all of them are like thousands of years old, and yet these dudes are like they're 20. So you couldn't possibly picture one of them looking like a child, but you can imagine all of them looking like they're in their 20s. Shut the fuck up, bro. Because they are souls. They do not age like regular humans. They age far slower. So obviously some of them would look younger than the other ones. And furthermore, this character is like 1,000 years old. They know how to dress. Alas though, reading would involve these people's kryptonite. Which is reading. Reading is the kryptonite, if you got the joke. And then they calling Bleach racist because of Chad constantly losing. I'm just gonna post this image. I will say this out of the big three, and this is not a jab at Naruto or One Piece because it isn't their job. However, I do believe Bleach treats their women and dark-skinned characters better than Naruto and One Piece. This isn't anything all that important. Hell, if you're watching Naruto and upset because my female character got sidelined, again, I don't think you know who shonen is supposed to appeal to. And then some people really tried to call Kubo a misogynist because he has a thing for women with big breasts. I don't know why, but this complaint just sounds like A-cup angst to me, and there's nothing wrong with being part of the itty-bitty committee, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I support my flat-chested women, but you can't be angsty about it, okay? You can't be angsty about it. You guys are beautiful too. It's just not everyone's preference. I don't know how that's misogyny. Lots of dudes like breasts. In fact, babies like breasts. He has a type. Before I get to the conclusion of this video, I want to say one more thing. A lot of these people who are mad are Ichiruki fans and Boruto fans, which they're both bitter because their thing didn't succeed. There's probably more I could talk about in this video, but why would I do that? I think I already got all my points across. So in conclusion, yes, women who think every story and every story decision that doesn't benefit a woman is misogynistic still exist. These people just aren't in 2015 owning feminist compilations. They are out there in the real world, talking amongst us. Your next door neighbor could be Nova. I hope you know that. I know I'm going to be called every buzzword in the book, but I'm on the internet. I don't care. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Follow my Twitter so I can get a blue check mark and then tweet 24/7 and make a living off of that. Also, try to comment on this video so I can reach more. If you thought this video was good, comment Bleach good, feminist bad. And one day, who knows what I'll do. But bye, love you guys and gals, and low-key, this makes me want to read the Bleach manga, so we'll see if I do that.